We good on sound? Good on sounds? All right, everybody, we're going to get started. All right, awesome. Welcome, everyone, to Agentic LA. This is the second installment of Agentic LA. So far, my favorite Agentic LA of all of them. This spawned from a number of different trends that we were seeing. I would say one of them was this content is really hot. Everyone wants to talk about AI and agents and how it applies to them and their work. There seems to be a really big desire for in real life events, experiences, hanging out with smart folks, talking about what's really happening in the ground floor. Seems to be a lot of hype out there. One day we read that AI will replace your job reader immediately. And the next day we read that 95% of agentic projects fail to make it to production. So the question is, which is the truth? And so this is a big impetus of why to get people in real life. Is, we can exchange stories and figure out, what's the truth? What's the truth of the matter? What does the topology look like? I see AI as sort of a Jenga tower, if you will. There's many different pieces to it. We try and pick topics that are a bit of a lightning rod, where we focus on maybe one or two of those building blocks. The last Agentic LA we ran, the headline was getting agents ready for prime time. We had with us LangChain. Any folks out here familiar with LangChain or using LangChain? And a company called Arcade Dev, which focuses on getting agents access, authorization to use other tools. And they're seeing this stuff head on, where projects fail to make it to production because people run into edge cases and hallucinations, and InfoSec and all sorts of things prevent successful, interesting, cool, shiny, agentic projects from making it to production. Today we're focusing on SEO and the agentic web, and why specifically this topic, right? So I think we remember back, ChatGPT 3.5 was November of 2022, I want to say. It predicts text, right? Think of that as like one building block of the Jenga tower. Big deal, it predicts text. We saw diffusion models come next. It makes us images. It makes videos. We saw that it can make decisions, that it can rationalize and think through a big process. We see that we can ask it questions about law and about health or healthcare. We can ask it questions about accounting. We see that it can write code. We see that consumers more and more are relying on LLMs as opposed to going to search. And so when you take out each of these little Jenga blocks, what we see is that there's this big tower that is about to collapse. And so I think it's funny when lots of technology companies and folks talk about disruption. What we're doing is disruptive. We're about to disrupt this industry. Well, this is a really, truly disruptive phenomenon. If people are relying on chatbots and agents and LLMs to discover things on the internet, if agents are able to go to the websites on our behalf and browse around and figure out, what actions to make, it remains the question, will humans visit websites? And I figured this was a good, controversial lightning rod type of topic to rally a good crowd of folks to see what's going on the ground floor. So maybe to kick things off, I'd love to do a quick little who's who. I'd love to understand in the crowd who here is working at an ad agency, performance marketing, digital, there you go, creative. Who here is working at a brand? E-commerce brand, big retailer, love it. Who here is at a big FANG company, big tech company? I know we got more hands. I know all these answers I'm treating, by the way. I run the Loom account, so I know we have a lot of FANG and big tech folks in the crowd. What about founders? People that are starting new, love it. Love it. One of the coolest things, best kept secrets about Los Angeles, big startup community, a lot of founders, people starting tech companies. Who recently has wrestled with SEO firsthand? You're having conversations with clients about what am I supposed to do? Yeah. And what are the answers? Few and far between. It's crazy. So I'm going to tell a little personal story to kind of kick us off. So my name is Tim. My company is called Latticework Insights. What do? I use data and technology to help brands see their business more clearly, help them graduate to the next stage of growth. That usually means things like Fivetran and Snowflake and Databricks and Tableau and data strategy, and more that means agents, things like LangChain and OpenAI, and helping them understand like what's going on with their business. So I've been doing this for about 10 years. I thought I had it figured out. I just relaunched my website. So as an exercise, I want everyone to take out their phone and I want them to go to Latticework Insights, it's plural, latticeworkinsights.com. Breathtaking redesign that just launched. And I figured, hey, listen, I've been doing this for 10 years. I've got a lot of partners, I've got a lot of traction, I have a lot of press write-ups. We've been in Adweek and the Wall Street Journal and all sorts of exciting stuff. I bet I'm just gonna knock this out of the park and cruise into this web design, this redesign, and my site's gonna rank like crazy on Google, and I'm actually gonna jump into ChatGPT and I'm gonna ask it about what it is that my company does. Big fail, big humongous fail. And so I asked it all these questions. All of the references were not Adweek. They were not the Wall Street Journal. It was like Zoom info, and it was random broken links to my own website. It was a big mess. And so I did a bunch of research, and I was just like, I must be doing it wrong. There must be a silver bullet to figure out SEO in the age of AI. And so I read this thing. It says, there's this thing called llms.txt. Everyone familiar with llms.txt files? Okay, so you go to latticeworkinsights.com/llms.txt. Okay, so I upload my llms.txt file to my website. It's gonna fix all my problems. I describe in painful detail what it is that I do, what it is that I focus on, all the links on my website, and I take the llms.txt file and I upload it to ChatGPT and I start asking it all these questions about what it is that I do. Well, spoil the surprise, it hallucinates like crazy. I'm asking it super basic questions about customer lifetime value and retention and Snowflake and Python, and it's getting it wrong. It's getting it wrong. So we've all had the experience of talking to a chatbot and it gives you these really weird answers. Well, this is what's happening behind the scenes when it's going to your website. It's getting confused. Then I read that llms.txt is not even really the standard, that it's using all these other ways of going to your website. One of which is it's using a browser, if you will. In many ways, the LLMs can see. So read this blog, dude has a really smart insight. He goes, take a screenshot of your website and feed it into ChatGPT. And I'm like, great, all the images are very lush. It describes what we do in painful detail. And then I look at the screenshot and 75% of the information is not even there. Why is that the case? Well, I have a fancy, well-designed website where things transition in and we've got these animations. The LLMs don't even see it. All that fancy shit that we as humans love to see when we go to the Nike.com website or Home Depot or Best Buy is invisible to the LLMs. So I said, I got to host an event where I bring a bunch of smart people to tell me how to do SEO and I can get my site back up and running. So, okay, so what do we have for an agenda today? We've got a bunch of awesome speakers. I'm super excited to hear them talk. I know you guys will be as well. Our first speaker is Evan Grenda from AWS Startups. Evan has a really interesting perch, I think, a very interesting POV on the landscape. He runs the generative AI practice for AWS startups. He has a portfolio of companies that he coaches. He gives them advice about, what's going on in the AWS landscape. I'm super interested to hear what he has to say about their agentic offering. They have a set of tools for building agents across, a whole bunch of different platforms. Then I have Jake Mackler from IBM. Shouts out to Jake Mackler. Jake Mackler also runs a generative AI practice at IBM where he's focused on telecom, media and entertainment, hosting IBM services across a whole bunch of interesting use cases. He's going to talk about this agentic web that is coming, where consumers more and more are interfacing with brands and brands' content through agents. And then I'm going to have Craig Harrison from Elk Marketing. Where's Craig? Shouts out to Craig. I wanted to bring someone in to talk about what it's like in the trenches when your clients call you and say, I'm freaking out. I just read this stuff on the internet that says I'm not going to rank in ChatGPT. I'm hearing that Shopify and OpenAI are in bed together and they're going to launch this thing. What is this thing? What about all this work that we've been doing for years trying to rank on Google and Bing and Yahoo? What's going to happen? So I know Craig's going to have a lot of interesting things to say about the nuts and bolts of getting this stuff to work. After everyone speaks, we're going to do a quick little panel. If people are interested, we're going to do a little drinks around the corner if you want to join us. And Agentic LA Part 3 is tentatively scheduled for Menlo Park in October. Menlo Park, ooh, controversial. Behind enemy lines in the Bay Area. We'll have to figure out a new name for the event, Agentic Silicon Valley potentially. But we hope to do lots of these. I'm super excited to get a lot of smart brains in the room to really crack through the hype that we're all seeing about AI and hopefully get a bunch of folks connected and get to the bottom of some of this stuff. So without further ado, I want to hand over the presentation to Evan Grenda.
Quick introduction, I'm Evan. Directionally, you are right. I do support coaching startups, but not just startups. Many times, really big enterprises. Essentially, how to turn that 95% not getting into production to 100%. So I directly support the partnership with MetaLlama to deploy their models across all of our services. And we have a million different ways where you can run models on AWS. In the world of we're convincing customers to fine-tune, the conversation has very quickly shifted to building agents. So we spun up partnerships with Core.ai, LangChain, Llama Index to make it a lot easier to build agents on AWS. So working startups have a program where we incubate companies using Llama models, but oftentimes working with really big strategic customers on very large workloads. And as of recent, it's all agentic AI. So trying to get our customers into production. I will not be talking about SEO today. I will be talking about how to build agents that access the internet. So browser use agents, as they're called. I'll give you a little bit of an AWS overview, what Agentic Frameworks is, what we call the Agentic Stack, and then really focus on tool use. And when I say tool use, a tool is how an agent accesses the web. And then I'll talk about Agent Core, which is our new suite of offerings around several different pain points in the infrastructure that supports large-scale agents. And then at the end, I have a few predictions, a fun little conversation piece. So I'll try to keep the AWS sales pitch at a minimum, but to give everyone kind of a lay of the land, this is how we look at the world. So we have out-of-the-box agents. Think of them as applications. If someone wants to migrate a large code base from SAP, we have a developer app that will migrate your database. So they're kind of out-of-the-box agents. Moving down the stack, you have tools and frameworks for agentic solutions. So I mentioned Agent Core. We do have an OSS library that you can think about like a LangChain. And then all of the third-party stuff, which is probably 80% of the work I do. Bottom two are very important, models and tools to build generative AI apps. So you have Amazon Bedrock, where you can access Claude, DeepSeek, all the good models. And then at the bottom there, you have the actual infrastructure that you can support a little bit more advanced application building on Gen AI. So things like fine-tuning, actually building your own foundational models. So believe it or not, Claude is trained on AWS infrastructure. A lot of the models you use are actually trained on our GPUs with those services. So, wanted to just spend a second here on the inference options. This is the bottom two buckets you saw on the last screen. From left to right here is kind of the level of complexity. So, fully managed. You have Amazon Bedrock. You go into the console. You can fire up an endpoint for any model you want: DeepSeek, OpenAI, Claude. And there's a bunch of bells and whistles. It's the easiest way to get started. Really big business, multi-billion-dollar business for AWS. Moving up the stack, you have SageMaker. SageMaker is kind of a silent behemoth. There's a bunch of tooling within there to do fine-tuning, data pre-processing. Traditionally, it was all XGBoost and traditional machine learning. But it's actually been repurposed to be kind of a sophisticated engine to build and train models. And then lastly, self-managed. So when you go onto Netflix and all the recommendation engines and all that good stuff, Netflix is sophisticated enough where they just rent the infrastructure from us and build their software on top of it to run it. Lastly, we do have partners for third-party inference. So think of neoclouds and companies like Fireworks, Space10, and Together AI. It's actually AWS data center, and their software sits on top of the GPUs for us. And you can go onto the website, access the models, but it drives GPU revenue for us. So let's get into models. So again, this is how I kind of view the world here. You have specialized models. Again, I talked about Amazon Q. It's an out-of-the-box agent that has probably 10 different offerings. Probably the most popular one is database migration and mainframe migration. You have third-party agents. So I don't know if anyone's heard of Writer, but it's one of the partners I support. They're a SaaS application. Kind of like N8N for enterprise, so you can go on and with no code you can build a flow of agents and give it tools and do really cool stuff. So you kind of get an out-of-the-box SaaS application that you can build agents that runs on AWS. I don't know if anyone used Claude Code. Claude Code is absolutely fantastic. Runs on AWS, but again, like you're accessing this third-party application, and it's built on AWS infrastructure. And then lastly, DIY. This is probably where you see most of the builders, especially for big enterprises. It's big companies that have the engineering expertise to stitch together all the components you need to scale out an agent to millions of users. So I don't want to confuse you. I hate architecture diagrams in a presentation. I really wanted to show this because building agents is hard, and bringing agents into production is a difficult thing to do, and you definitely need the engineering talent to create it from scratch. So on this diagram, you have 4 different components: the agent workflow, agent components, evaluation framework, and then monitoring metrics. Within the agent workflow, right, you have a task you want to accomplish, you give an LLM instructions. Okay, it doesn't work that well. What are all those different components that I need to accomplish this task and to do it well? So within that bucket, you have the foundational models. You got to choose the right model. You got to have the guardrail so it doesn't do something crazy and you ask it to buy you a hat and you end up with a shirt. You have APIs and tools to connect to the web, to connect to databases. Memory, so it remembers if you had a previous conversation. There's a million things in this bucket, but that's kind of where the special sauce is. Moving down to the continuous evaluation framework, you definitely, when I talk to customers, this is the first thing we talk about is how you plan to evaluate. Because when you make all these incremental changes with different libraries and different tools, it's almost impossible to diagnose what the issue is and where you're getting incremental improvements from. And then lastly, having a dashboard with all the metrics on how much things are costing, how well it's performing, and then a feedback loop as you iterate on your agentic application. So this is an easier way to understand the last diagram. This is how I look at the agentic stack. First, you have foundational models. We all know what those are. You have OpenAI, Anthropic, all the good models. Next, you have orchestration platforms. So we mentioned LangChain. You have Crew AI. There's several ones. I would say, from what I've seen, LangGraph is by far the most popular. AWS does have something called Strands, which is their open source repository to orchestrate agents. You have observability and monitoring. I expressed why that's very important as you make changes to your agents, right? You need to be able to measure and diagnose what's going on. Memory, right? As you interact with an agent or as it does things, you want it to have context for the subsequent interaction. So say you have a session one day and a session the other day, right? You want to have that context in the second day for what it did previously. Tools, it has a red box around it. So this is where we're going to spend most of the rest of the time on. So tools are the things that give agents abilities. Allows it to access a database, allows it to use your browser to go surf the internet, allows it to go into Salesforce and make an update. Those tools are really the things that make Agentic. So that's what we'll be spending most of the rest of the presentation on. MCP, very hot term. MCP is closely related to tools, but it's a kind of a standard mechanism to interact with tools and make it more of a repeatable pattern. And then you have storage and compute, kind of your traditional items that you need to build out a large platform. So here is a day in my life. It was fun, doesn't it? Like talking to a customer and guiding them through this process is pretty hard. So here are all the partners we work with. I mentioned a lot of them, right? You have your model providers, your orchestration platforms, observability and monitoring, memory, MCP and tools, storage, retrieval, and compute. And the topic for today is web views, is Agentic Web. So in that red box, you can see here are some of the popular frameworks that we work with to integrate them into our models and services to access the web. So you have Tably, browser-based, Composio. You're basically equipping the LLM with an API to go do a task or go retrieve information, one of those two things. So that's what really gives an agent power. So yeah, agents don't just answer, they act through tools. Here are kind of the high-level categories. I put this slide together in about 5 minutes before the meeting. So here's how I kind of conceptually think about tools, right? You have browser tools that access the internet. They can spin up a virtual browser and take actions on your behalf. You can have tools to access APIs or SaaS. I mentioned Salesforce, right? You could have an API into SAP. Next, you have data retrieval and search. So there's out-of-the-box APIs that can actually function like a mini Google that can go out and scan the web for websites and then do intelligent ranking and kind of all that good search stuff. Next is the code interpreter. So you get all this information back. It looks really messy. How do I organize it? There's a bunch of tools out there that you can use to organize this information into charts, into tables, all that good stuff. Or put it in a PDF, right? PDFs suck to deal with. And there's a bunch of tools to make it a lot easier. And then lastly, memory. And what will come up when you talk through tools is always like, what's MCP, what's 8A, how do all these things connect, how do they work together? Pretty much anything nowadays can be wrapped in an MCP protocol. It's a server that can be hosted on AWS, on Cloud, on your local machine, and what it does, it essentially standardizes the way you interact with that tool or connection. So every time the LLM goes to access that, it has standard instructions and prompts in order to retrieve or take the action. So when you think of an LLM, like if you go to OpenAI right now and just kind of gave it like a random task, right, it wouldn't have any context for how to accomplish that. And what MCP does, it wraps it in a standard protocol that basically improves accuracy and allows it to be successful. So why do agents need browser tools? I think about the high-level categories, web navigation and interaction. So going onto a website to book a trip, check the weather, do all the cool stuff you would need to plan a trip, right? Interacting with all those data sources and websites to pull that information, and not just pull the information, actually take action. So when you flip over to workflow automation, filling out a form that you might need to make a reservation. All these are using tools to accomplish those tasks. And then lastly, I think I actually don't work too much in web scraping and SEO. That's why I said I will not be mentioning SEO, but there's kind of a lot of standard libraries around web scraping and pulling in data to index it and search it. So I would kind of categorize that as the last bucket there. So, how to build a browser use agent. It's an evolving landscape. If I think of the three main categories, it's sandbox cloud-based browsers, the ecosystem of tools for agents, and then you kind of have this frontier category called general vision agents, which have gained popularity, but only exist in things like Anthropic computer use. So starting off with sandbox and cloud-based, you can kind of think of this as the de facto way to access the web. So there's several companies that do this: browser-based, browser use, Stagehand, OpenAI, Operator. So this is kind of the de facto way to give your LLM access to the web and instructions to go surf and either pull information or complete a task. It's a headless browser. It can navigate any website. So it's super flexible, and it's probably the easiest and most researched way to access the web. One of the limitations of it is latency and network dependency. So by the time the client server send back information, you kind of fall into this trap where it's no longer real time. And it's an agent, so you can't really press the back button to go and change the process. So you kind of fall into this trap where you need to deal with latency and network dependencies when you use a cloud-based browser. Next are the tools. So I mentioned a few of those in the slide: Composio, Tably, Exa, Surfer, Linked Up. Big fan of Composio. If anyone has used that, they have like 150 out-of-the-box APIs for anything from Gmail to Salesforce, like pretty much any Supabase, like pretty much any connector they have it, and with one line of code in your Jupyter notebook, you can go and pull data. So kind of a frontier area, and there's pretty much infinite startups trying to solve specific solutions to go and grab data and do tasks. One limitation is many of the times this is purely a data extraction approach. So you're pulling in data to do analysis. A lot of the times these do not have the capability to actually take actions on your behalf. So more for, think about deep research use case, that's where these tools really excel. I'll skip over the general vision agents. If anyone has used Anthropic's computer use, I don't know what exists in that black box, but I know it requires a lot of GPUs because it's taking snippets of the screen and analyzing each snippet and actually performing like a human would perform, like using a website. So eventually GPU will become cheap enough where that will probably become viable, but definitely not any small startups with open source libraries that support that. So here is several snippets I pulled on what it looks like in real time when browser use, and this is the headless browser that I mentioned in that first category, the most popular category. Here's one adding grocery items to a cart. So when the model actually goes into the website, spins up a virtual instance and stands up a browser, this is what it looks like as it scrolls through to take actions. Here's an action. Here's an example of when it books you a flight. So again, it's identifying those buttons and taking the best route to accomplish whatever task you give it. So this is an example of someone extracting their most recent LinkedIn connections and adding them as Salesforce leads. And I wanted to show these three to give everyone kind of a mental model of kind of the art of the possible here of what browser use is, right? You're taking information, taking those insights, defining a task, and telling an LLM to go accomplish that task with a given set of tools. So here are just a few use cases to conceptualize it. This is the scary slide, the reality of building production-ready agents. A bunch of challenges. I think you saw those screenshot, like how do you even create the observability tools to see what the heck is going on when an agent is scrolling through a web tool to accomplish a task? So if there's one takeaway when you're building agents is use whatever framework you are comfortable with and start early with observability and evaluation so that you know between tools, between LLMs, between frameworks, that you actually have that diagnosed, and through each step in the process, you're monitoring latency, failures, as you'll need to input a shit ton of logic to essentially like retry a lot of steps and take a lot of steps to make sure everything functions properly. So we had the scary slide where I said it's really hard to build agents. There's a bunch of challenges. AWS just came out with a new product called Agent Core. There's 6 features within Agent Core. Think of them as all separate products. The one I want to talk about is Agent Core Browser. So as I mentioned, the most popular way is to stand up a virtual browser, a headless browser, and go and surf the web. And AWS came out with an out-of-the-box solution to stand up a virtual browser and have a bunch of great features that make it a lot easier to give your LLM access to a browser and then give it the ability to take actions. So here are some of the benefits. Fully managed serverless browser, so right, you don't have to manage any of the infrastructures you scale, right? If you're a company that's released something in GA and you have 1,000 concurrence requests, that's not hard to handle, but when you scale to 1 million concurrent requests, you're going to run into the issues. So you don't have to manage any of that scaling. Security is a really big item. So isolating those environments into specific containers for security purposes. If you think of large enterprises, right, they don't want someone's third-party LLM poking around their internal site. So what it does is creates isolated containers to prevent any security breaches. Live observability, which is very cool because when you use one of these open source libraries like browser use, what you don't get is kind of a progression of steps and screenshots for every sequential step. So what it does is every time it clicks, it takes a photo, and you can actually stitch together like a really good observability story to diagnose what actually happened. So if it does something wrong, you can go back through and see the steps it took with screenshots. So how does this work? Really simple example of building an agent to go search for shoes on Amazon. So a user would request search for me for shoes on Amazon. It would invoke a model. What the model would do from there, it's like, all right, you asked me to do something, here's kind of the instructions I would output to go and take this action. All right, so when you use any of these other libraries to go and take that action, everyone is going to maybe have a different structure for how it intakes those commands. So what this does, it actually translates that command specific to any library. So think of, like if you're using LangGraph, right, there'll be specific function calls that you'll need to complete. Anything from like browser use, browser base, right, it'll translate and optimize those commands so it completes that task correctly. At the bottom is the infrastructure portion, right, it stands up a virtual machine, executes the commands, and then, again, I talked about the screenshots, really important for observability, and then it feeds it back to the other. If there's any coders in the room, this is Python code. This is how easy it's set up once you provision the resource on AWS. It's a few lines of code to stand up this service and the ability for an LLM to stand up a browser and take action. So it's super simple to use and super scalable. So pretty pumped on an Agent Core browser. I think it's, it's easy to build a toy. It's hard to build something that's scalable, and that's how this is positioned. And it's cheap. I wanted to throw the pricing slide because like I get this question a lot. Is like, how much is this agent going to cost me? And it's very hard to give the whole picture. And this is just one portion, right? How many tokens it's going to use for input and output. But right, this Agent Core makes it much more simpler to get a view on how much it's going to cost to get quick capabilities. I think I'm 1 minute over time. I'm at 21 minutes. I had some predictions, but maybe we can save these for the end.
Throw some predictions out. You can. I'm sure.
Yeah, this is for everyone. I just kind of put this slide together. I think one interesting one is, I think on the same storyline of 95% of production use cases, or 95% of use cases not making it to production. Like, you know, when will we get to the point to where with natural language you can type into a box like I want a new pair of Cole shoes, and it'll go to Amazon, find me the cheapest one, and buy it for you. Because it feels like it's maybe a cosmic step from where we are, but it doesn't feel too distant. So, you know, I think timeline-wise, like, does anyone have a good prediction for when you think we'll have really powerful, like, agent buyers for us?
Christmas.
Christmas is the right answer.
Sorry, I don't have a prediction. Can we get access to these slides or no?
Yeah, sure.
Question for you on the agent of the shopping. That still requires the user intent. I'm wondering, given Amazon's knowledge of their customers, why wouldn't you just proactively ship us products?
You should come work at Amazon.
You don't want that. That's too much power. Access to your money.
Yeah, one thing I didn't talk about today is human in the loop. So a big part of building these agents is incorporating the right breaking points, so that you can go in and say like, all right, here's the plan I put together based on the task that you asked me to accomplish. So in the case of shopping, right, you could incorporate a breakpoint before it executes the transaction to say, all right, yeah, these shoes are good, it's cheap, like go ahead and buy it. So that's kind of a crucial component, especially in POCs, is setting up a lot of human in the loop, and then over time seeing how you can reduce the number of human interactions. Yeah.
How do you see search engines like transforming in the next 1 to 2 years?
Search is such a complicated one. Like Perplexity does a bunch of work with AWS, and it really comes back to like kind of traditional machine learning and indexing, and how you kind of present those results, because it's no longer a blue link world, right? You want kind of the robust answer with analytics. So I don't know if I have a great view on how search will change. Probably someone from Google could answer that a little bit better. But I just think the software and the libraries that support search will get a lot better. Like, for example, what Perplexity is doing, and they're doing a bunch of optimizations. I think on this slide I had the library they used. So they used Vespa as like their intelligent library to search and index, and that's what really allows them to get like 200 millisecond response time across 100,000 different results when you search. So just like a lot of when you think about like search combined with like the generative response, like that latency and that optimization for how you do search and indexing is super important. So I just think that will get a lot better.
How many startups are in the portfolio that you said you're overseeing?
So the way AWS works is we have segments of business. We have a whole startups team that we partner with, and then when they need support on fine-tuning a Llama model, they'll bring my team in, I'll bring our engineers to have a discovery session and help them accomplish whatever they want to accomplish. But we did just kick off Llama for Startups, which is a cohort of 30 startups with like 500K in AWS credits, and they're looking to build on Llama. So that's kind of a cool example of how I took the partnership, kind of have all these existing customers at AWS, and kind of create this cool combined thing, because in a world of this slide, it's like you have infinite possibilities. So right now it's like 30, but a lot of relationships with like startup account managers and SAs to help them work through issues.
What are some of the enterprise usage of Agent Code Browser that you've seen? Because I feel like the consumer use, there's still a gap in every individual has his or her own preferences that is not easily expressed.
Yeah.
And the agents usually doesn't do a good job, but there is a human in the loop outcome that is important. But that set aside, what are some of the enterprise early adopters use of Agent Code Browser that you've seen?
Yeah, I think it's like all the tradition, like travel search, like anything browser use. It came out a month ago, so I don't feel confident to say like I have like the list of top 5 great production stories.
Okay.
I think it's too early to say, and like I don't think the adoption is that great in the market. Like I don't think many in this room have heard of Agent Core. It's more for enterprises and engineering teams. And how much time do you have?
Let's do one more question, and then we'll do Q&A afterwards. But let's do one more question.
Where do you see brands fitting in this and advertisers in general? I know on the last slide you had talking about SEO and like retailers influencing when it comes to like data. Do you feel like that's a good thing for consumers or a bad thing? Like, how do you think that will influence the overall process of buying products?
Yeah, I think that's what we're here to talk about today, right? In my experience, right, I'm working for big enterprise and startups that, right, aren't necessarily brands, right? They're mostly technology companies and ISVs. So I don't have the right answer. I think it's something.
I think Jake has the answer.
Yeah, Jake might have the answer, but I think, as these things to evolve, like, right, I mentioned 5 startups that are probably have, a combined valuation of a couple $2 billion that are trying to solve for that. And each of those companies will have a different way that they search and index results. So it's kind of a world where you kind of have to figure out a strategy to optimize for all of them.
Awesome. Good job.
All right, can you guys hear me? All right. Good evening. That was awesome. You just got a pragmatic cookbook for building for the agentic web. Now I'm going to go super pie in the sky, not at all pragmatic, not at all useful today, but potentially interesting tomorrow. And this is a topic that I love talking about. Like, what will the web look like 5 years from now? Name is Jake. This week I'm moving to Laurel Canyon, taking on applications for new friends. I'm very serious about that. I have a lovely family. We're a lot of fun, and I'm just open to that. So find me afterwards. If you don't like Ghibli art like this, you will not like this presentation, and I apologize. Day job, I lead the TMT practice at IBM Consulting. I got some of my IBM Consulting peers here. I'm so happy to have you guys. Thanks for coming out. We get to work with really large companies solving really complex problems and building custom solutions. We're actually seeing a lot of pilots succeed. So this 95% stat was not touched by IBM, FYI. But I'm going to talk to you today about a topic I'm really excited about, the agentic web. This is the most important chart. This is the trajectory that will shape the customer experience for the next, take a picture for the next 5 years. We are seeing crazy growth from these AI tools at the same time that we're seeing atrophy from the traditional blue links. We are going to cross 1 billion users monthly, unique monthly users of these AI tools like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Copilot, and Claude and others by the end of this year. And before 2030, I mean, if you want to, you can extrapolate out, or you can think that the curve will actually increase at an increasing rate based on the development of models. There is going to be this inflection point where the way that consumers not just shop, not just browse, but like think is going to be an extension of these tools. And that is going to reshape our economy, which is really what I want to talk to you guys about today, because I think everyone in this everyone will, as consumers, be impacted by this, and as brands, as consultants, et cetera, we have to think about where the puck is going and start to design experiences for this new world. Looking backward, the web, as we think about it today, I love that you made everyone pull out their phones, phone free, whatever. It's 30 years of technology built around optimizing the human experience. Like you said, with your friendly little JavaScript. There's all this tech out there and all of this work that's been done to take that customer journey and scientifically optimize around it. Every click is tracked, every mouse movement, every scroll. And we've built these like kingdoms around this customer journey optimization, the net promoter score, like all of these things around the human experience. And that is all going to change. It's already happening. The robots are already taking over. As of 2 years ago already, traffic on the internet, there was more bots than humans. Now most of those bots are dumb bots, but there's now this kind of insurgency of agents that are already coming to websites, mobile apps, travel sites, all these things, and they are an incredibly important constituent, and we're going to talk about why. All right, the good old days. In the good old days, you sat on your couch, you were a human, you got to browse, and you got to find what you wanted. It was easy. You clicked a button, you typed some stuff in. It was a relationship between you and the internet, you and the Nike.com, you and Google, whatever you want to call it. Now, this crazy thing's happening. An agent goes out on your behalf when you ask a question and goes and searches. If you're, typically they'll use something like the Bing index to actually go find what you want if you say, what is the best SUV for a family of 5? So now, there's something in the middle between you and the brand. This little infinity logo that looks really friendly but really isn't. Voldemort. No, not Voldemort. But this agent is rather than a human browsing, this agent is going out and they are taking your query and they're going and searching on your behalf. And they're not just making a search. They're not just asking that. They're not Googling what's the best SUV. They're starting with the raw ingredients. They're kind of looking around, picking from different websites. And then that's not even enough. They're not just going to aggregate those answers for you. They're actually going to chop it up and prepare it for you and serve it to you on a nice platter with all of the intelligence that it has infused in it as a ready-made, cohesive answer. And that is both great from a consumer perspective and a little bit scary from a brand perspective, because you are allowing this semi-sentient being to make some real decisions on your behalf, and you're offloading what was a human customer journey. And so what's happening now is agents are disintermediating brands from their consumers. There is now this friendly little guy in the middle between you as a brand and you as a consumer. And eventually, and by eventually I think in the next couple of years, like this is not science fiction, this is what's happening now, agents will be the primary visitors of websites. Humans will still exist, websites will still exist, websites are not going anywhere, at least in the next couple of years, but the constituent that will be doing most of the browsing, most of the consideration, most of the shopping, will be these agents. And so agents are going to become first-class citizens of the internet. And it's, in my opinion, about time that we started to treat them that way and perhaps roll out the red carpet, because we have to cater to these creatures, for lack of a better term, because of their increasing importance and because they're not going anywhere. In fact, they're becoming more and more up and to the right. Brands, or top-notch SEO consultancies, or top-notch agentic consultancies, are going to need to learn how to connect with their customers through agents. And Elk is going to get, in the next segment, is going to get into some real pragmatic kind of instructions on how to think about that. The way that the mental model I'm using in my mind, I'll date myself in a way that you guys both date yourselves. But I graduated college, and my first project, I was a digital product manager, and I was a financial services company, and they were like, 30% of our traffic is coming to our website on mobile phones. And they see this like big desktop optimized website, whatever. And we had to overnight ship a MDOT website, a mobile optimized kind of code base for phones. So we had this new constituent that was super important, that didn't exist yesterday, existed today. And we had to hustle to build this kind of pretty crappy experience to just give them at least an okay experience. And over time, obviously responsive came, and mobile got treated as this first-class citizen. This is our responsive web moment times 1,000, because now the new constituent is not a different size of device, it's a robot. And that robot thinks incredibly differently than we do, and has very different needs than we do. I love this quote from Dharmesh, the founder of HubSpot. Websites are built for humans, APIs are built for a special type of human called a developer. Mobile sites are built for phones. I wonder if we'll see websites created specifically for agents, and thank you, Evan. It seems like we already are in the process of doing so. All right, last couple things. I'm trying to keep it quick here. I'm excited for your questions. Let's talk after. Preparing for the robots. Back to Tim's point, I'm an LLMs.txt bear. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a meaningless implementation as it stands today. You can bring a robot to the water, but you can't make it drink, and that's really what we're seeing. But you're going to need something, and that something will be structured data. It will be taking this beautiful UX that you've built, this wildly dynamic way of showcasing your product, and turning it into something that they understand. And agents do not understand your swipey things. They don't understand JavaScript. They don't understand everything that makes the web great for humans. And that's incredibly scary, and that is a problem that we need to be thinking about today. There's going to be a lot of things that happen in response to this. The AI players are scared of this as well. Evan mentioned Operator. I don't know if anyone has used like Agent Mode or Operator on ChatGPT or Claude for computer use, but it is both hilarious and scary to watch. It's so, like, I can feel the GPUs burning as I'm doing it. And I'm watching, I said, like, hey, I'm a size 12, look up Nike Air Jordan, brown color, whatever, and tell me if my size is available. And then I watched it spin up a browser and like click on every size individually, and then click on every color, and then go back, click on the sizes again, click on the next color, and then give me the wrong answer at the end of it. And the reason is that they're trying to traverse the web as it is designed today, not as it's designed tomorrow, which is why the web as it's designed today represents an existential threat to these providers, and they need to own the browser stack. And we're going to see OpenAI come out with their browser later this year. Perplexity Comet is already pretty amazing, and Dia is also amazing, all worth trying. And then the other really weird, scary thing that someone already mentioned is the commerce experience. I think Tim mentioned that. Already within Perplexity, you can shop, buy with Pro. Agentic commerce from Shopify is going to be coming out before Christmas. And with that, you will be able to search for a product, see a list of SKUs within ChatGPT, click on one of them, put in your credit card information, all without leaving the ChatGPT experience, which as a consumer sounds nice. As a brand, I'm really sacrificing a lot of my brand story, brand value, brand journey in order to reduce the number of windows that have to be open. So both scary and exciting. All right, so what do you do about today? Talk to Elle, talk to Tim, talk to me. IBM Consulting, we're doing a lot of work with, if you make $50 billion or more, I'd love to talk to you. If not, talk to Tim or talk to Craig. But step one is benchmarking your visibility. So we work with a company called Profound. There's a bunch of great companies in the space. I think Chris is going to talk about another great one. Step one is to know when someone asks a question that's relevant to your brand. You're a sports bras brand. What's the best sports bra for women, ages 35 to 37? What is your visibility score? Like, how often does ChatGPT actually return, or Perplexity or Claude, return you as a recommendation? Second question is, why? And then, what are they actually citing information from? When these models go out to that marketplace, when Voldemort goes out and prepares those tomatoes for you, where are they going to look for that? Are they going to your website? Are they going to Reddit? Most often Reddit, most often Wikipedia, depending, a lot of preferences. I think Chris will show some data on that. But it's really important to understand where are the robots that you care about looking for content that you care about. Once you know that, that's when you start to work with internally or with consultants to actually build against that and begin preparing for the agentic era. The way we're doing it at IBM, we benchmark the current state. We start with the visibility score. We start with the key sources. We then built a content automation strategy, which means kind of working with Writer. It's a key partner of ours to actually build the content and create a kind of a feedback loop where, as we're seeing what questions are being asked that we're not showing up in, how do we create content that fills that in? Where do we push that content? And then revamping your digital strategy, thinking about your own domains and how that you can make them more robot friendly. And it's really that simple. See you in the next 5 years. And that's really all I got for you today. I'm excited to get some questions. I think I can hold them until afterward. Thank you. All right, cool. Yeah.
What does this mean for the brand's website if agents are scrolling and, like you talked about, clicking on every single size?
Yeah.
What does it mean on the website? Traffic and capacity, are we seeing anything?
So, like Evan said, the actual, you can swap it. The actual operator or agentic things, it's a toy right now. It's too computationally expensive, too inaccurate to actually be relevant. But every time you do a search on ChatGPT, it's using a headless browser and it is accessing directly content from your website and others. Now, I think in most cases you'll see that 95% of the content is not from your website, it's from somewhere else. But what does it mean? It means that you have a new constituent. You need to start by measuring it, and then you have to actually start building a better optimized version of your website. It starts with some sort of highly structured JSON object that sits between your website and the LLM that guides it on what to do. And then from there, I think that we're going to have to see over the next couple of years, how does the logic of how the robots actually parse, I think OpenAI is in the process of switching from the Bing index to its own, to I think like a Google product for actually the search index that it uses. So you have to kind of stay current, just like you do with SEO, on like how it's actually making those decisions on which websites to go to and which content it's actually scraping from.
So even Tim mentioned that a lot of stuff that is animation and made for humans, the GPTs cannot really read it. A lot of that experience is particularly the thing that sets the brands apart, because those are the things, most of the purchasing is emotional rather than rational. Do you see consumer purchasing behaviors shift towards much more rational purchasing rather than emotional purchasing?
I think there'll be a bifurcation. Someone asked, and then you got scared of like buying on your behalf, like buying without asking. It's going to happen. Like what will happen is my agent will know me well enough, and I will give my agent a budget for everything I need, and I will slowly over time, starting it with a heavy human loop, begin to trust the agent more and give it more latitude. As it gets more access to my life, as it learns my buying habits, like you are going to give up so much privacy in the next couple of years. And it's so funny because Google already knows so much about you, and it does nothing with it to help you. It serves you better ads. Like thank you, Google. Like if you gave ChatGPT or Claude or any of them as much information as Google knows about your shopping history, your kind of where you browse the internet, it could do so much for you. It could actually make your life better. So it's not like you're not giving up that information today, but you're going to see how by giving up a little bit of information, you're going to get a lot of value, and over time, you're going to give up a lot more. Now, back to your question on like, how does that erode or help the brand's value? It will be like a bifurcation, like toilet paper, Amazon. A Nike shoe, like there will be reasons for that brand to tell that story. And now they're going to have to figure out for those kind of high value brand story items, like how do you balance that? How do you tell the story, but not sacrifice the agent experience? So there's the customer experience, the agent experience, and you'll just have to be able to balance those two, which will require measurement and a strategy.
Okay, so sorry.
We're gonna talk in 2030. Yeah. Yeah.
I totally agree. So my cyber brain is thinking like I love AI. I'm all about it. Trust me, that's a part of what I do. However, I'm thinking the balance. There's always a balance. I mean, between human and machine. There will always be. But with that being said, too, the parameters. So this is going to go somewhere and get out of control before I know it is. Before they then put some constraints, guidance, parameters for not just with companies, but I mean, just you think globally, because like you said, it's taking right now, and it's been doing this for years, taking bits and parts of what we do, everything we searched it, people not realizing when you do a text autocorrect, just all the different parts and how it's evolved to what it's doing now. But at the same time, there has to be a control around it, some governance, compliance, because if we don't, it will get out of control, and thus all the cyber parts that my brain is thinking about in terms of that. So what do you see, and how do you see the balance or the parameters or things kind of as this grows and as it grows exponentially quickly, bringing that back in so humans aren't losing the control that we have?
I think that we're going to give up control as a function of how much value we get. As the value continues to grow, we're going to be willing to benefit from it. I hope that we design systems that as the value erodes, we're able to claw that back. But there's an optimist take here, and then there's the Terminator. And I am a techno-optimist. I believe that capitalism has this beautiful way of self-correcting, and if a company provides a product that doesn't provide value to shareholders, the market will correct itself to some degree. I'm half kidding, but I can't predict it. All right, one more.
I have questions. I imagine there are going to be more websites in the future because of cloud code. People will be making more websites exponentially. Do you think they will make it more difficult for SEO because there's more data out there, more websites for searching?
I'm gonna defer to Chris on that one because I'm not an SEO expert, but I'll give like the high level thing, which is like raw intelligence is increasing. These models are getting smarter. GPU costs are gonna go down. Like everything would indicate that nothing that you're saying can scale as fast as the intelligence of the models will scale. So I don't think that technically it's a problem. SEO I'm not sure about, but like more generally, like will the amount of stuff that humans can create ever present a challenge for robots of ever increasing scale as you're bringing nuclear power plants online? Like I don't think that's going to be there will be a problem, and there will be slop, and there will be a bunch of mess out there. I don't think that SEO will be the problem though. But I think that's a pretty good answer. Thank you.
The glasses? No, the other one. The one's in the box. We'll give a minute for a shuffle. Seems like people are taking a quick shuffle. Yeah, but they're just doing a quick shuffle.
I'll go into it.
We got one more presentation.
Make sure your mic isn't on you.
You heard me take a leak about 10 minutes ago.
It's a long one.
Hyping
Nice
myself
bladder
up.
on you. Oh, cool. Thank you. Yeah, I got it.
We ready to rock?
Yeah, kick it up.
All right. You need your computer? Are you guys settled? Quick little shuffle. Welcome back. Thank you guys for being here. Want to give a quick shout out to Tim. Of course, he left from the Latticework team. He's one of the best in the world at big data and is on the cutting edge of building agents right now. So it's amazing that he's bringing us all together. It seems like these events have died off since COVID, and Tim's getting us back out here talking about these big problems, which is really exciting. And shout out to the guys with IBM and AWS. Like, that's insane what's going on over there. So super excited to see all about that. So quick history. I've been working with Tim on projects. We collaborated on building shopping widgets on MySpace pages back circa like 2007. My grandpa was an IBM salesman starting back in 1946. So I was doing math, and that was about almost 80 years ago, which is crazy. And then my first AWS account was 2009, back when it was EC2 and S3, and now it's probably 10 times more bells and whistles than what we saw in your presentation. It's absolutely crazy. So my name is Craig Harrison. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Elk Marketing. A bit about myself. First and foremost, I love sandwiches. You can find me drinking Starbucks, fixing the technical foundation on clients' websites while listening to heavy music. If I'm not doing that, I'm walking my dog, Tuna, unrelated to sandwiches, and I'm a runner. And that's probably my favorite running pose, which is not running. So intro, Elk Marketing, we're a 30-person full-service digital marketing agency, core teams in the United States. If you look at our extended team, it's probably 50-plus people if you're including developers, designers, content writers, and then our kind of back-of-house team. These are some of the brands we've worked with over the years, and providing like incredible growth for clients on the SEO front and the paid front is what has allowed us to work with brands like this. So when you're talking about where's SEO going, literally every CEO at every one of these companies is flipping out right now because they're understaffed and they don't have the team in place to help figure out what the heck is going on with the SEO that they've invested in for the last 30 years. And in terms of our agency, we're kind of 3 agencies in one, where we lead with SEO. We have a full-service paid media department, and we also have an in-house engineering and development team. And really, that's what sets our SEO offering apart, is that our SEO team can collaborate in-house with our engineering team, because as you get bigger and bigger and bigger with SEO, you need more technical solutions. And brands like TaylorMade, they all have technical website problems, and they have challenges with SEO, even if they're on Salesforce Commerce. Bigger brand, just bigger problems that we are excited to help them solve. So the real reason I'm here today is to talk about, in a big tangent, the reality of SEO. So I want to start out, and I'm curious if anybody in the room has done SEO before in some capacity.
SEO's dead.
That's why we're here. Has anybody gotten something ranking on page 1 that was a non-brand keyword? What'd you get ranked?
It's like a food and drink calculator for like people who are having parties and they want to know how much food to buy, drinks to serve. So, yeah.
That's freaking awesome. Anyone else?
Athletic shoes.
Nice. And you got that on page 1?
Yeah.
That's legendary. Any horror stories with SEO?
Oh, I've seen things go from ranking number 1 and number 2 to page 2,000 overnight.
And what caused that?
Just unplanned shifts in the algorithm, unplanned shifts in technical aspects. ABA compliance from 1 to 2 was a killer.
And what happens with traffic when you go from number 1 to number 2?
Everything tanks. Your authority score goes down, your relevancy goes down, your paid search goes down, everything tanks.
So the difference between position 1 and position 2 on Google is success and tanking. So we can go with that. So with that answer, you get a pair of Gooder sunglasses. Perfect. So then, yeah, we just talked about kind of the beginner's guide, basics of SEO, and the reality is you can crush SEO from 2007, 2019. You're going into COVID, you're loving it, you're loving it. Algorithm adjustments, headless websites, over-designed agency work, and all of a sudden your SEO tanks. You can't catch back up. 2021, keeps going down. You hire Elk to help save you, and this ship is already underwater. There's no chance. This is where the tangent comes in. Has anybody done running? Anybody go running? That's what I'm talking about. What types of running have you guys done? 5K, 10K, half marathon, recreational, half marathon? That's solid. Have you read any of these articles that are ranking on page 1 of Google for how to train for a half marathon? How to run with your dog? Yeah, they're worthless. Here's my opinion of running. Running sucks. It absolutely sucks. It's a vicious cycle. You get into it, you think you're getting good at it, then you get shin splints. Then you keep going, and it's just a vicious cycle. You stop running, you get out of shape. Then you want to get back into running, and it takes you longer to get back into shape. You guys see Tuna there? My partner in crime right there?
I see your PBR.
Yeah. And notice, the distance, 0.0. It was a fake race. I just had to post drinking a beer in my shirt. This is my crown achievement in running. This is the Gooder Randy's Donut Mile. And in terms of all of my running accolades, if you were to rank it in terms of search, I would have been on page 1 this day, because for some reason I excel at eating 4 donuts and running a mile at the same time. And then the real race that I wanted to talk about is the Angeles Crest 100 miler, which goes from Wrightwood to La Cañada. So it's like partway to Vegas, back to Pasadena. And it goes through the mountains. So for some reason, I got this crazy idea to run this race in my head. Exactly. Why? And I had so much fun talking with Tim about this at about 7:15 on Saturday morning that I fleshed out about a 90-minute podcast that I'll probably just do for myself to listen to about the correlations between an ultra marathon and doing SEO. So let's rewind back. You're welcome for this picture of my amazing outfit. I got the pink socks, the orange hat. This was early on, kind of a first half marathon that I did Didn't really have a training plan, didn't have a team, just kind of wanted to go out there and run a half marathon. It went poorly, finished, and I said, hey, I'm going to retire from running. The similar route in SEO is you write a few blog posts, you might update some meta titles, you look at something in Yoast, you wait 2 months, you curse Google, and then congratulations, you're on page 4 for the next eternity until you get back into SEO. Fast forward a few years, I did the team and training. What's up, Diallo? San Diego half marathon. I had a team, I had a cohesive 4-month training plan. I actually stuck to that plan and kept doing the effort over and over and over again and got the marathon finished. But it's because I had that team around me that we got it done. On the SEO side, that's structured campaigns. It's a content writer. It's long-form content. Multiple posts per topic. It's schema. It's a technical foundation. It's doing your squats. It's stretching. It's getting the right shoes. It's learning about it. And then just running over and over and over again for 4 months. And then congratulations, you're on the top of page 2. And you're stuck at the top of page 2. To get to the 100-mile ultra marathon, I got there by just running and running and running and doing trail races, 50Ks, 50 milers, surrounded myself with people that knew about the race, and just learned everything about it. And then what got me to be able to climb these mountains and get to the finish line was obviously sandwiches, quesadillas, Coke, and salt pills, hallucinating in the middle of the night. But this is an example of the effort that it takes for one keyword group in SEO. So running for years and years and years, then training for 6 months specifically for this race, and then welcome to page 1. We got onto page 1, we might be in the middle or bottom of page 1, rinse and repeat, go back, go train for another 6 months of effort to get into the top 3. Finished the race, I was probably mid-page 5 in terms of race results. I wasn't there to win this thing, but we got it done. So real-world example from our friends at Gooder Sunglasses. They launched in 2015 as running sunglasses. For 4 years, all they did on their website was talk about building the best no-slip, no-bounce, all polarized, $25 running sunglasses. Problem was they weren't optimized for SEO, so their H1 tag on their homepage said, we're recklessly committed to fun, ... blah, 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 sunglasses. Not quite optimized for what we know about. For search, they're at the top of page 2. As you can see, they had like incredible growth. The brand just absolutely insane. And we started working with them in November 2019 to target running sunglasses. One keyword group, one SEO test. It took us 12 months to get a website that only talked about running sunglasses onto page 1. Then it took another 6 months to get them to position 1 on Google. But then guess what? CNN starts writing about running sunglasses. Then Tom's Hardware starts writing about running sunglasses. Then another brand pops up. Then Deion Sanders, and forgot the name of that company. Anyway, but it's like running to stay in shape. Once you get to position 1, you have to keep running to maintain position 1. If you stop doing SEO, you stop running, you get out of shape, and you fall out of the rankings. So I love the phrase, where is he? Constituents. We previously just had to satisfy Google. Now with AI and all these different models, who knows how many of these machines we need to build authority and feed our content into, but it is just a massive, massive, massive opportunity. And I'm pleased to introduce Chris Stout from our team, who is going to talk about GEO plus SEO and all the exciting world of AI.
I think I might have to take your microphone. Thank you, Phil. We're just going to do a quick workflow change, just bear with us. There's going to be a lot less running in my slides. I'm more of an indoorsman myself, but cool. Okay, so SEO is dead, as we all know. Again, like it's another year, another dead claim on SEO. And there's lots of new acronyms, which is always fun. So I don't know if I really love any of these, but a lot of people have very specific opinions on which one should be the winner, what's the future, what's dead, what never existed. There's a lot to unpack here, but I tend to use them all kind of interchangeably. I sort of am being a little bit more geo-focused this month, but I really don't have like a horse in the race necessarily. I've been doing SEO for 20 years, so a lot of this stuff to me is super interesting because I feel like SEO is finally getting a little cool again. Like there was a long time when it's like, oh, we have to listen to the SEO guy try to get his like QBR slides in there. It's like, everyone be quiet, we're talking ROAS with the adults right now. It's like, no, but still, you guys got to build up your content hub and we got to get these dev tickets in and all that good stuff. But there's just a lot of there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of hyperbole. There's a lot of just reading things every day that you're like, I just happen to disagree with everybody. Like when anyone says that none of this Gen AI stuff is new, it's all SEO, I don't entirely agree with that.
Anyone own a red Tesla? No? Anyone red Tesla?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Keep rolling.
So yeah, I don't believe the whole SEO is dead crowd. I don't believe the whole like geo is everything. I really think that there's some like level-headedness where you can kind of have an eye towards the future and not ignore just 20 years of stuff that's worked and the fact that people are still Googling things that hasn't quite yet gone away. So I like guys like Dwayne Forrester. He's an OG like SEO guy. He helped roll out Bing Webmaster Tools. And I really I use this in prospect pitches and in client conversations that we're really living in a space or a place between two worlds right now. So you have all that like traditional search, but you also have that the generative AI systems kind of operating in the same moment. And so I don't think you have to necessarily strangle one in the cradle or put one out to pasture. You can talk about these things like refreshingly in a normal way without having to take anyone out and just really look at how you can benefit and build strategies around both of them. So I'll try to go through this really quick because I'm not as smart as the previous presenters in terms of how all this stuff works. I was a history major. I get lost around vector embedding. I kind of get it, but like I don't really know how to turn like individual sentences into mathematical equations. But if we're just looking at these two different systems, everyone knows how search engines work. We've been trained to use Google as a verb, right? So you publish some pages, you get crawled, you get indexed, you get ranked, and that page is ranking for that particular keyword. And if you're looking for something, you may have to do a few searches, or you may have to click through a few different pages to really get what you want to from an intent standpoint. But the new Gen AI mechanics operate a little bit differently, and I think that that's important and noteworthy. And that's why I think that we're kind of in this interesting moment where a lot of folks either want to say, this doesn't matter, or this is exactly like this, or this is dead, or this is the future. Like they're both happening right now. So we can discuss them both together. For me, I think the query fanouts is the most interesting part of how this Gen AI mechanic stuff is different. So you put in your initial query, and then you have all of these subsequent fan-out queries that go out and try to capture your true intent. So what you search for and everything that I know about you, if you're logged into Google, et cetera, let me take your initial search and turn it into 5 or 6 searches. Now let me look for all of these different atomic pieces of content, these little chunks of information, not pages, but little things that speak to your answer. Now let me grab all those, synthesize it up, and serve it up in some citation that may or may not include a link out to your site. So it's a whole zero-click environment where you're just trying to say, hey, based on what your initial query is, I found all the relevant stuff, bundled it up together for you, so you don't have to search anymore. And here's your answer. No further action needed sometimes. Now, there's a whole lot of like SEO fundamentals that still are in play on either side. I mean, you still need a technically sound foundation, a site that's mobile first and fast and organized appropriately and structured so that bots and humans can read it. You still need a content strategy, because if you don't have these relevant pieces of information, then you don't have a raffle ticket into the entire like Gen AI mechanics output. So you have to build content, which I love as a content guy. Like I was a fantasy sports writer coming out of college, like after being a history major, and that's how I got into SEO and whatnot. But the content argument was always like, oh yeah, that's nice to have. Like now it's like it's table stakes. You guys, like, everyone has to build something citable if you want to show up in these areas. But all the offsite stuff still matters too. Whereas before it was a whole bunch of links and everyone's focused on getting their supremely optimized anchor text to point to their money page so that they can rank for the one head term that's really important to them. Now it's a lot more just getting mentions and citations and a little bit more of this like PR reputation management side of things. So all this stuff is still like fundamental SEO, but it's just a little bit different. So what I like to do is talk about these things in the same breath. All of the fundamentals that you still need. Yes, you need on-page optimization and you need keywords, but you also need to optimize for this query fan-out. You need to build topic clusters that deeply address topics in an authoritative way, and not just these like 3,000 word articles that are just designed to rank for one term that you're going to build a bunch of links to, and hopefully that's going to drive all your traffic. So there's all these like reporting things that are different too. I love it how Google is like, hey, don't worry so much about clicks, everybody. Like you don't really need those anymore. And when you do get them, they're going to be so much more valuable because they're so much more informed. It's like when the SERPs moved from the paid being on one side and the organic stuff being on the left, and now it's all blended together. I mean, we knew why Google was doing that. But I like to just talk about the fundamentals and talk about the new stuff all in equal breath, because you should be doing the stuff that has worked traditionally, and you should be looking forward and making sure that you're there for when these AI bots want to chew through your site in a different way and feature you in a different way to consumers. So what does this mean? I like to talk about chunks, clusters, and citations. I mean, I think it's better than acronyms because we're at least trying to break it down into like individual parts here. So from a content perspective, and this used AEO, like I said, GEO, it really doesn't matter. You're just trying to do this for the future. There's a whole lot of ways that you can structure content that's going to promote its ability to surface in these AI areas. So we talked about structured data already and just how machines love that stuff. Like optimized subheads and question-based subheads. These aren't like new ideas when it comes to like optimizing content. But you want to be able to put something together that's ready for citation, that's worth being cited. And this is how you get these little individual 100, 200, 300 word chunks that can show up in these synthesized answers, and not just like how do I rank my one page for my one money keyword. So that's like on the micro side, you need all of this chunk stuff. But then you also need some kind of taxonomy that makes sense to bots and to users, where you're grouping all this stuff together in topic clusters. Now, like topic clusters aren't some new thing, but neither structured data, neither schema, neither any of this stuff. Like it's all reinforcing some of the best practices that have always been there, but the mechanics are a little bit different, so you kind of have to lean into it a little bit more. And I love trying to build out a content strategy that's not just, hey, I have a blog. How can I just put a new topic up and I'm putting out fresh content? But is any of that stuff related? Are you building any kind of like semantic relationships and relevance between content that speaks to certain personas, content that exhaustively addresses specific topics, or content that addresses questions? All this LLM stuff, people have questions and LLMs try to anticipate answers to, they try to anticipate the next question. So if you're thinking about how do I build out a content strategy, it's less about let me throw some keywords into a keyword research tool. What has the highest volume? Let me get these 3 things. It's like what are the like 11 things that someone are going to ask about one topic, and do you have enough answers and content to build around to really create something that's supporting a superstructure of information that you want to give consumers. But you also have to be mentioned somewhere else. I mean, you can build all this kick-ass content, but if no one knows about you, or if LLMs are trying to figure out if you're like a legit source of information or not, you have to be seen or be present where these models are citing. So this is a profound study from AI overviews. There's a similar like SEMrush graph that looks the same too. There's not a whole lot of source information for specifically looking at like this, this Gemini like view of it. There's a lot of YouTube, a lot of Reddit, a lot of Quora, a lot of LinkedIn. That's a big piece of the pie. So whereas before it was like, I'm just trying to date myself, like 20 years ago, let's hire someone in India to get as many links as possible to drive to this one page. Now it's like, how do I get news story and actual like PR around my brand? It's actual brand building, so that when you're being looked at as a potential object for citation from a large language model, they can see that, hey, let me look at this organization and their knowledge graph, and like is this entity a thing worth citing to? So you have to be present in these areas as well. So we partner with Scrunch. Profound's pretty badass too. But I think that the cool stuff about AI monitoring is that you get some visibility into a little bit of that black box experience. But there's also this notion of creating a middle layer that's going to speak to that new agentic future that's been outlined today, where these websites, like, yes, you have your kick-ass website, but no, I can't read the JavaScript. And I want to serve up something that's just going to speak to the agents to give them the information that they need to consume to be able to earn presence in some of these citations. So we've put together at Elk a pretty comprehensive geo SEO audit. It may have a different name next week, just full disclosure. But I think it's important that all that fundamental SEO stuff that never really gets enough breath in the room, a lot of that, most of it still matters. And a lot of the new stuff isn't entirely new. But if you want to drill down and create that chunkable content in a clean, cluster structure with an easy to navigate and index website, and if you want to understand how people are searching for you within LLM models and how you're being cited and where you should be cited, all that stuff is just expanding on what SEO is. And so I don't think SEO is dead. I don't think geo should get a bad rap, but I think everyone needs to chill out and just recognize that there's a lot of good stuff that came before. All these fundamentals still play, but you got to have an eye towards the future also, so you don't miss the boat on some of this stuff. That's the real quick version. So if you guys want audits, please come talk to us. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so I've seen 700 million people use OpenAI, but Google doesn't seem to be losing any money. I think they're actually making more than they were. So I don't know if you can speak up to that. Are there people just chasing are they just spending more money just to kind of maintain the same, even though maybe more people are just moving to ChatGPT?
I think from the graph, I believe it was in your presentation, that Google still has a stranglehold of market share on search behavior, and that's not just going to go away, even if it decreases over time, and that adoption of AI models increases over time. I just don't see the cliff for Google. They're going to find a way, and they're also mixing it in with AI overviews. With if you look at some pages, you have to scroll down, 1 frame, 2 frame, 3 frame, and then you get to the first organic result, which is nobody's even going to check that out. But if you got your AI mode and your AI overviews and all the other SERP features, people also ask this kind of stuff. Eventually, there's just going to be more opportunity to advertise in those areas, and it's just going to become more of a chase to just try to get a foothold within that stuff. So I don't see Google going away. I don't see. I do see adoption of AI models increasing, but I don't see it as like I'm taking from you to earn stuff over here. It's going to happen in tandem.
I'd like to bring everyone up, all the speakers up.
Oh, sure.
I want to keep the questions coming in. I encourage folks to speak. I'm going to switch places with you.
Okay.
What other questions do we have from the audience?
My background's in advertising, and I was really curious, kind of actually a couple questions for a couple of you. From a standpoint of when agents are going out and doing your shopping for you, and brands are interacting with those agents, do you see a future where the agents themselves are monetized on behalf of the consumer, where the consumer can effectively sell that personal data to an agent, brands can advertise against that agent, and create that interaction, and create that purchasing intent as it were? And do you see the future for that?
So question being, are we as consumers going to pay agents to do work on our behalf?
And also, you as a consumer, with all of your metrics broken down into different consumer intent behaviors, can you effectively sell that out on behalf of your agent and have the brands interact with that and pay for that sort of quote unquote agentic impression for that ad that they're serving to you?
Yeah, I'll take that one to start. You're already doing that, right? You're already selling, effectively selling information. So the modern web was built on an advertising-based model, a freemium model, where we give away our information in exchange we get free stuff, and it worked for a long time. It also sucks. It's the best thing we have, but it still is terrible. Everyone hates advertisements, pop-ups, whatever. One of the thing I'm most excited. So like to answer your question, yeah, but it's already happening today. But the opportunity here is actually to move away from an ad-based web to something better. And there's this writer, Ben Thompson, who writes for Techers. It's my favorite blog. It's the only one I pay for. I would highly recommend it. his perspective on this that I love, and I'm sorry I had to talk about blockchain. This sounds like so crypto, whatever, but his perspective is that this is an opportunity actually to create a micropayment system where as the LLMs go out and access content, people can actually get paid, like creators can get paid for good content that gets more retrievals from the LLMs. And basically, I give my agent a $20 budget a month or a $100 budget a month to flush me with all the best content of the web. The agent then goes out and whenever I ask a question, it has access to proprietary content, all the content out there, and it does little micro payments for each one of those that basically allows me to access that content because you're not getting you're not getting eyeballs on ads anymore. And the power of that, and obviously like the blockchain component is like the only way you can do that without crazy fees, whatever, would be like some sort of new payment system. But the beauty of that is that you're able to actually more effectively balance the right incentives. Like today, people create slop to drive ads, eyeballs on ads. Like you will actually truly get rewarded for making great content. And it could make a more democratic and a better web. So like to answer the second part of your question, like you're already selling your data, it sucks. To answer the first part of your question, like there is an opportunity for a better system that better monetizes and incentivizes better content.
Can I ask a different version of your question? Cyber Monday is in 10 weeks, right? It's 10 weeks, 12 weeks, something like that?
Not my business.
Okay. And so the Shopify OpenAI integration launches when? In a month? Confidential? Okay. Before Cyber Monday, presumably. Before Christmas, this launches. What are people supposed to do right now in this vacuum of information? There's a little bit of information about what this experience will look like, but in 10 to 12 weeks, people are going to be shopping for the holidays on ChatGPT. So what should people be doing right now to prepare for that?
Optimize your product feed.
Okay. How long do they have?
I mean, just get to work on structuring as much as you can, and don't ignore things that you feel are table stakes because you're trying to feed machines in a different way. So I think the product feed optimization, especially on the paid side, is a lot more top of mind. But on the organic side, it's often a miss, where people aren't taking the time to really fill out every possible field to create that clearest possible picture of what they're trying to offer to consumers. And so I mean that's a
Get started now.
quick take. Yeah.
What else we got?
So a lot of content these days are LLM generated, so I'm just curious what that means for the value of the content itself.
That's a great question. I've read different things. I read something recently that's like LLMs love like LLM created content. I was like, okay, LLMs, like that's
Written by an LLM.
yeah. Thanks, guys. I think that there's a lot that can be automated, especially from like the topic clusters, for example. Like if you can like ask a large language model, like what are the most like exhaustive ways I can discuss a specific topic? What are the questions that consumers are going to want to know about? How does that match personas and whatnot? You can do a lot of that work at scale with AI. But then if there's no human element and it's just all M dashes and that's and emojis, exactly. Like I don't like reading that, and I can tell when I'm reading that, and it makes me like a little bit mad, But that being said, I think that there's still so much you can get out of those tools to be able to do things at scale that you couldn't before.
Yeah, and not a plug, but the company that I helped manage the partnership, Writer, which you said you worked with, was founded on the basis of writing blogs. That's why it's called Writer. And their foundation is in creating content. And you don't have to know how to code, but you can go on their website and feed it in data on topics and create like a no-code pipeline to generate content, whether that be images, like full blogs and things like that. So I think like in the case of Writer, you're going to have really good tools to help you generate good content that does all the amazing things you talk about with clustering topics and keywords and all that good stuff. So you'll have better tools to do that, I imagine.
I feel like this is like a similar gold rush to like the early SEO days where you could like cram a bunch of stuff in the meta tags to like fool Google into ranking you. And like, unfortunately, like, yeah, this is a slop moment. But like, so what we're doing with Writer at IBM is we have Profound identify the keywords, what people are searching for basically. Then Writer is trained on the client voice. So it knows how the brand speaks, et cetera. We take the topics that they're not working well in. We then use Writer to produce slop, but a good slop, to fill those gaps of stuff that we don't, that brand doesn't already have. So like gold rush moment, yeah, it's not ideal or not perfect, but like I would be thinking about how you can produce content at scale based on first measuring your current state.
Playing on that question, the first part is how do you see LLM generated content ranking for SEO? Is that viable, or what that landscape looks like? Obviously, it's an important part of SEO. And the follow-up to that would be, where do you see it going forward, where the LLM agent, whatever it is, comes to your website to get information from your site, but that information is generated by an LLM, which the LLM itself could produce? What is the incentive?
Yeah, it's a vicious slop cycle for sure. I think I read some recently that like just the percentage of top ranking content is mostly AI driven. There's no like non-AI assisted. Maybe it's not purely AI, maybe it's just some AI assistant, but there's no like just human writers dominating like the result pages with purely organic content anymore. That's just not a thing anymore. I think what you're going to get is a lot more slop, and what you'll need is a lot more either tool intervention or human intervention to like try to unslop that a little bit. But it's never going to not be. It's always going to be a little bit sloppier moving forward. Is my view. That was my same thought with the question that you fielded on just like, there's going to be so many more websites, so many more proliferation of things. Like, how do you rise to the top of that? I think if everything becomes more sloppy, then the non-slop sticks out as well, even within the volume.
Yeah, and like someone asked the question at the end of mine, like, what does that mean for like optimizing for all these different ones, like Perplexity, right? They kind of developed their own framework with an open source library to do a better job of searching and indexing content. So I think also on the retrieval side, searching and indexing and then retrieving the best results, like systems will get much better at doing that in a world where like, LLMs are just buzzing away shit onto the internet.
Tim, you talked about the example of all this work at your website, right? That's not picked up. Does that then start to think that applications are where humans will go and bots will search the web, right? Like mobile app is a unique, cool experience that that a bot doesn't care about.
I mean, I think you had a slide, about the upcoming browser wars. And I think as a developer, as a consultant, we think a lot about like what are the opportunities whenever there's a new technology wave. You say, oh, Facebook apps are a new thing. I'm going to get really good at building Facebook apps, or mobile apps, or I'm going to get really good at building mobile apps. But the idea that there might be a totally parallel web experience that only agents consume, your slide about just a big block of like machine readable text. The question is like who's going to develop that? Is it going to be a single SaaS company? Is it going to be a plugin? Is it going to be OpenAI is going to acquire someone? Or is it going to be a whole universe of consultants who then become like really skilled at developing machine readable websites? I'm going to pass that question over to IBM on that one.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like, do you think websites are going to go away? Like, I think there will be a place for human readable websites and a place for human used mobile apps, and those are both like kind of the same in terms of your ability to browse, shop, whatever. But like, I would imagine, by the way, nice to see you again. We got to catch up. Like, I would imagine that there are times where you would have picked up the New York Times or something on your phone as the app, but you instead go to ChatGPT today. So like, it's all going to get cannibalized to some degree, but then there will always be a reason why you want to go to the source.
One of the biggest marketplaces that people shop and check out on is Amazon, and it feels as like a user, there's not much AI going on there in terms of my search results. So I'm curious if you guys have seen anything coming or there's anything you'd recommend for brand on platforms to do, or really the answer is everything we've kind of talked about tonight will add a halo to your revenue on Amazon.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I was going to interject at the end of that question is like, right, you have this new internet that just blocks a chunk that an agent can read, but you don't need to read because, right, you have an agent working on your behalf. But then you have all these companies like Shopify, Amazon, TikTok Shop that have these moats of last mile delivery, ease of use. So I'm not really sure how to like pair those two. Regarding the last question, I think that's kind of an interesting concept is like, how do you take this paradigm change in like an agent environment where you make it a lot faster and it gets you the result, and then you have Amazon.com where you use the AI button and it doesn't work that well.
So yeah, so you have, it's called Alfred. Is that the experience? Rufus, my bad. Yeah, I don't use it. So, and this is, I think it suffers as a similar phenomenon across SaaS websites. Salesforce does it, Slack does it. All these applications slap an AI bot on the top of their site, and it just doesn't work. Right, so I think there's a question of like, well, who's going to build that experience? Like, is it going to be Shopify and OpenAI that win a big chunk of the e-commerce battle? Will there be an Amazon experience that's surfaced in, in Claude and in ChatGPT? Because the ones that are native in the SaaS platforms never seem to work. Snowflake, the Snowflake chatbot never seems to write good SQL. So it's very confusing for customers to be like, am I really going to use bots to do shopping? I think it's a big question is who's going to win that space. It seems like OpenAI and Shopify are very well positioned for that, but it could be Chrome, it could be Perplexity, it could be like a browser experience, right?
Yeah, I think like, why are our iPhones so freaking dumb? Same thing, which is that like, OpenAI has nothing to lose. They're going to keep innovating, and everyone kind of expects it to hallucinate and whatever. Like, you can't screw up the iPhone. You can't screw up Amazon.com. Like, there is this burden that you have by being the system of record for these things that makes it a lot harder.
Yes. Speaking on, I don't know your name, but she mentioned Amazon, and I got to thinking about the ratings of different products. And then, you brought up the slide with Reddit being one of the biggest sources of responses from ChatGPT. Where do you see the future of ratings and real human feedback playing into AI shopping for us?
Can I get a weighted rating system on any application? Because like everywhere has like a 4.7 to like 4.9 now. So just a sidebar, I hate how inflated ratings on everything are.
But like you read the Google reviews, and like in China, for example, like they don't have Yelp, they have Dianping, I can't pronounce it, but they basically shop for restaurants based on photos and real feedback from customers. And I find that super valuable, where an AI may not be able to discern from what's an actual rating and that 4.7 that just all mesh together. So just curious to see where you thought that was going.
Yeah, I mean, Reddit called out Profound on their earnings call recently because basically like their entire business now, like they have access to this proprietary data, and like that is the future of their business, is feeding it into these large language models. And so that kind of incremental data is going to just become more valuable and monetized.
I know this has been talking about SEO, but I'm thinking a little like deeper, like one click deeper. So when it comes to like the actual pages that are, I guess deciphering this information and regular users, human users are now like going to, I'm thinking from like a media mix standpoint, and like when it comes to display banners or homepage takeovers, like that's a whole piece of like a media mix or a budget that potentially is now worthless. Like if people are not going there, or a lot less more things if no people are actually going there. I'm just wondering, where do you think that money will be reinvested, or are there any other pieces of the media funnel that would be even more beneficial to repurpose that money? And are there any other high value placements that would be better than to put it on like display banners or homepage takeovers or anything like that?
I disagree with Jake in that advertising may go away. I think that advertising, ad-supported internet, on balance is a good thing. I think that there's a couple factors at play. One is which nobody in AI can figure out how to make any money. And so there's going to become a point where all the VC money is going to dry up, and people are going to have to, there's going to be a musical chairs game of who's left standing. And I think that the ad money is going to be the one to keep it afloat. Also, as a consumer, I like advertising. I like good advertising. And certainly good paid advertising is really effective. So if I'm going to go into an environment that knows about me, it has my cookie ID or has my user ID, and it has a history of what I know and what I like, to go onto Perplexity and search on a bunch of stuff and to see relevant advertising targeted at me is a benefit to me as a consumer. And I think it keeps the ad ecosystem healthy. And frankly, I think something's going to need to keep the AI world afloat about beyond just lots of $20 a month subscriptions.
Yeah, and OpenAI is going to launch ad-based free ads on the free tier this year or in the next 12 months. So it's not, ads aren't going away, but it's that as content is retrieved from sites that historically showed ads, either those sites will go away or they will need a new way to monetize.
So what does Reddit do? I mean, how does Reddit make money?
What they're doing, they're striking massive deals with the model providers, and that's what's driving their earnings up.
How does Reddit prevent them from scraping their websites?
Well, there's multiple ways. Like if you guys are following Cloudflare, there's multiple ways to prevent a robot from scraping a website. There's also a lot of controversy around that, but it's a complicated topic.
Yeah, if you're going to sell the model, like it's a pretty big risk to scrape the web because then the customers using it want to have indemnity. So it's like a lot of the big model provider shops. That's why Scale AI was acquired by Meta for billions of dollars. That's why the resale proprietary data where experts are annotating is so valuable because you can't scrape.
To echo your question a little bit too, like I think that no one really likes uncertainty, and I think media buyers and media planners don't like uncertainty either, and they're trying to figure out like, well, where are we going to move all these budgets, because the budgets are very large, and if it's moving away from display advertising, and like open web display advertising, then there's a big question of like, well, who's going to take my money? Can someone take my money? And it seems like there's like a little bit of a vacuum as to who might do that.
I mean, it seems like the preference information and the information about the user is going to sit at the model now. So the media agency should go pay the model providers because that's where the information of the personal. Because if you put somebody in the middle and you as the end site no longer understand the consumer because the agent did the shopping for you. If I send somebody else to do my shopping for me, they don't know who I am, then the only person who does know that is going to be the model provider. And so if you want to know who those customers are, you go pay the model provider.
And probably like the ad tech ecosystem is really like long, the supply chain is very long. And so there may be a lot of intermediaries where people are going to go out and build like better agentic experiences than the ChatGPT interface. Under the hood, they're not going to build their own financial models, right? So maybe there'll be some handoff of consumer data in that way.
Can you guys expand on what one of you guys were talking about the common perplexity open or DIA and then the OpenAI kind of
Yep.
browser? Can you guys expand on what you've seen behind the scenes?
Yes, so Dia and Comet are sweet. I would recommend you trying one of them. You basically have a browser and a chat window in an integrated view. So you go to the page, you can do everything a browser can do. With Dia, there's like kind of Chrome plugin type thing. Like it looks very similar to the Chrome experience. But then you have this chat on the side. And the nice thing about that, first of all, is just that it's like integrated into your workflow. You can easily just ask questions and get answers. But you can ask questions relevant to the context of where you're browsing. And it allows it to much more easily kind of integrate the human clicking part of it and the agentic clicking part of it. And the future of this is now that they're in your browser, a lot of the challenges that they have around scraping and crawling and all of that become a lot easier because they're just using the same application that you're using. It gets a lot less compute intensive, a lot more accurate. And so that integrated experience is kind of their bet on how they will be able to evolve the agentic web in a way that's favorable to the model providers.
Yeah, check out Manus. It's kind of the first one that kind of blew everyone's brains. It's a startup out of China. And it was like the first person to do that computer vision type models where it like is computer use. And you can ask it to do anything and it'll do it for you. Manus will kind of break your brain.
I'll ask the audience a question. What other topics are folks really wrestling with where you'd love to see like a collection of like speakers, thought leaders, and so forth come together and address? What are folks working on that's like you can't seem to find answers about? I'll even post it to you guys. Yep.
So my project is building a media planning stack effectively. And what I'm trying to really get a grasp on is a bit more in depth and technical in terms of like graph rag and vector embeddings and managing an entire tech stack to actually use a company's data and their media planning data to generate better insights on the front end. And having somebody or coming to a talk that would really dive into that sort of technical nomenclature, that technical sort of underpinning of how all of that works and what is the best route to take, what's actually out there besides, the research that I'm doing and things like that. It would be nice to get into a really technical
Yeah,
discussion.
yeah, maybe Trade Desk and Databricks and someone else in the ad ecosystem would be a good one to bring together. Big ad agency, big media planning agency.
And on the same topic really quick, like there's so much content out there, but like on all these very nuanced topics, like GraphRag, I'm not a big fan of that, but I follow this guy on Twitter who really broke it down as like Postgres triplets is a much more effective way and easier way to manage the relationship between data, and it's basically GraphRag. And so like even with the like the OpenAI partnership, where it's like, how is this going to change with the e-commerce companies? Like, I found X is the most effective way to find voices that have super deep expertise in all these topics. And then you create little channels for all these topics, and you just consume like the most first-line, best information. So that's the main way I learn, is like finding these researchers that are writing about Gen AI on X and read their research papers and stuff, and really dive deep on all those topics. So.
Cool. Yep.
I think being able to see agents in action would be awesome. I think a lot of the discussion is higher level, but being able to see maybe founders or product teams that have actually been rolled out, seeing how far they're able to take it and what are some of the hurdles would be great to draw inspiration from.
Yeah, kind of like a work session format, open up laptops and kind of dive in. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Vibe coding party.
Say again?
Vibe coding party.
Vibe coding party on Bedrock. What's that?
There's a hackathon back.
That's right. Excellent. Thank you everyone so much for coming out. This is awesome. A handful of us are going to run over to get some drinks at this place called Bell's around the corner if anyone wants to stick around, but you guys are welcome to mill around. We have the room until 9. Thank you so much everyone for coming out. Future speaker, future ad tech speaker.
Great. Got my gears turning, actually.